Okay, so we are at 12:30. I see people are clicking on to register and join in. Hello to everyone attending today. We are now live. Welcome everyone to today's Teachable Tuesday webinar on building a winning team. If you've been attending our webinars, you'll remember Diane has previously presented for us. She ran the webinar on generations in the workplace. So if you like, after this webinar, you can also check out the previously run webinars on our website at www.wrla.org, and that is under events. Okay, so not to make this inappropriate, but what is everyone wearing today? Or maybe I should ask if we all feel like we can add Zoom experts to our resumes. I don't know about you, but I'm still adjusting with the working from home concept. But from the looks at some of the participants today that are logging on, I see that some of you may be logging in from work and are deemed part of the essential service. And for those that are still going out and working outside the home, you get my utmost respect. I know Saskatchewan has laid out a phasing in plan to reopen, and Manitoba should be seeing ours this week. So hopefully everything goes safely and as planned. Okay, back to business. You guys all came here to hear about engagement and succession, and not necessarily about the fact that I may or may not be wearing a blouse with PJ pants. So today's webinar is on building your winning team, engagement, and succession planning. It is presented by Diane Taylor from Glow Leadership. When asked about business challenges, our members indicated that engaging, retaining, and planning for succession is on the top of their list. In this session, Diane will walk through the key to success in building your winning team. She'll show you how one of the most profitable, successful companies built their culture and how you can bring this same culture alive in your business. She will also touch on succession planning and how you can easily move forward to support and retain your best and brightest. So who's presenting? I already mentioned Diane, but we have Jessica Cramner. She is the trade show event manager, and myself, I am the member services and solutions manager. And just a few housekeeping items. All attendees are muted, but so you should be able to hear myself, Jess, and Diane. If you have any questions, please use the chat icon at the bottom of your screen and type in the questions during the webinar, just kind of circled there for an example. Myself and Jess will be monitoring the questions, and then Jess will facilitate them at the end with Diane. As well, a link to the copy of this webinar is being currently recorded and will be sent out and posted on our website, again, with the link that I mentioned before under events. Okay, Diane, if you want to take it from there.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome while I'm getting set up here, I'll answer Erin's question. What am I wearing? I am wearing a business professional top with shorts because I'm on Zoom, so I can wear shorts. All right. Oops. Okay. How do we get there? Let's go back. Okay. We're ready to go. Today, we're going to be talking about building a winning culture through engagement and succession. And I want to thank you all for being here. I know that we're in very challenging and uncertain times, and the fact that you're still committing to your growth and development and the progression of your business is amazing. I know a lot of you are considered essential services and are working harder than ever. And I just want to say thank you for your service and stepping up during this time. The work that you're doing is really purposeful and meaningful. So thank you. So I'm going to start off by asking you a question. Why do you do what you do? And as Confucius said, the will to win, the desire to succeed, the urge to reach your full potential. These are the keys that will unlock the door to personal and business excellence. So spend some time maybe later today and think about why do you do what you do? And think about that will to win, because today what I want to talk to you about is building a winning team. So building your winning team starts with you and your will to win. And why you want to do that is a really important factor. And that can help you bring that forward with your team. So who am I? I'm Diane Taylor, and I'm the principal of Glow Leadership Incorporated. And this year is the 25th year in my career as a human resources professional. I spent my first 20 years working in the corporate world in the nonprofit, automotive, high-tech, and retail industries. My last corporate position was with RONA. And in that role, I led the Western Canada HR team, which was a team of 15 HR professionals taking care of the 53 corporate locations. And I was lucky enough to end my corporate career with I call it the cherry on top of my corporate career, was when my team at RONA nominated me for, and I was chosen as a finalist for the 2012 HR Professional of the Year. So I do different things now with Glow Leadership. I work with business leaders and athletes to elevate their performance within their organizations or their teams. And I work on strategic people practices. I do that in different methods. In the fall last year, I just launched my new Glow Leadership Members Online Leadership Development Program. And what I basically do is I help you and your team shine brighter. And I do that through different methods. First of all, I do HR partnership. That's where I work with companies either 2 days a month or 4 days a month. And I provide them seasoned HR support at the cost of an administrator. So there's a lot of businesses that do want to have some HR support, but adding a full-time person doesn't really make sense. So they bring me in for, an ongoing relationship 2 or 4 days a month where I provide the HR support. I do leadership coaching, and I implement with them people practices that drive results. And the great thing for me about that is the continued relationship, that I do feel like I'm a member of the team with the companies that I work with. I also do a service called an HR deep dive, and that's for companies that are wondering what can they do, what people practices can they implement within their organizations that will create a stronger culture that will drive more profitable results. And I go in and I interview, depending on the number of employees that a company has, either 8 to 20 employees. And then I do a full report on recommendations moving forward in terms of people practices. So that's something else, how I help companies with their people practices. And then, as I mentioned, in the fall last year, I launched my online leadership development program. And the reason I decided to go with an online leadership development is I've been teaching live leadership development now for about 8 years. It's my passion. And there's a lot of companies that I work with that they can't take their people out of the business for a half day or a full day. The cost of training is quite expensive. And the way learners are learning nowadays, the next generations of learners, the full day and half day classrooms really don't work that well. So I decided to take all of my years of understanding how people learn, how leaders are developed, and put that into what I call the answer that all people are looking for right now. It starts at only $48 a month per user. It's web-based, so your learners can learn from wherever they are. At times like now, when you may have people working from home, they can do their learning from home. There's absolutely no interruption to your business. And it's a great tool to support retention, engagement, and succession. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can reach out to me. I'd love to share more. So today, what we're going to cover is, why is culture the key to your business success? How companies who focus on culture perform versus companies that do not. And then I'm going to share my favorite example of a culture icon. And then we're going to end up with a little bit on succession planning and how you can simply and easily start to move forward with your succession plan. All right. So if I was to give you one key, one game changer that could significantly impact your business, that key would be culture. Organizational culture is reportedly the route to success and should demand most of our attention. So when we focus on culture, we actually create the results that we're looking for. And we're looking for those results. You know, back to that, you have the will to win. So you're in business, or you're in your position, you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to build a legacy, you're trying to create this profitable business to help your employees, to help yourself, your career, to help your family. You are looking for results. We all go to work, we all are in business to get results at the end of the day. And there's lots of ways that we go about that. We look at strategy, we look at numbers, many different things. We look at process. But if we shift our focus to culture as our number one focus, we will actually get results at a much faster pace. So I'm not sure how many of you have read Good to Great, and if there's an option to raise your hand and you've read Good to Great, raise your hand. Good to Great is one of the top business books of the last decade, and it's written by Jim Collins. And Jim Collins also co-wrote Built to Last with Jerry Porras. And in this book, he says that companies that have focused on corporate culture for the last decade have outperformed companies that did not by a factor of 6. So that's pretty significant. These companies have outperformed the general stock market by a factor of 15. So the companies that are focusing on culture, they've spent 26% of their time focused on culture, more than any other category. So these companies are focusing almost 1/3 of their time on their culture. So this is the model of these companies that are outperforming other companies on the general stock market by a factor of 15. They're spending 1/3, approximately 26% of their time on culture, 20% on process, 19% on customer relations, which is very much often linked to the culture, 18% on learning and growth, 11% on societal contribution, giving back, community service, things like that, be not just the me, but the we factor, and 6% on finance. So I'm guessing that a lot of companies, or you might spend a lot more of your time focused on finance or the numbers rather than on culture. And it might be shocking to you to see that finance at the very top there as opposed to the bottom or the foundation. And it might be a little bit hard to trust in this, but it's very well documented. And that's why I want to share with you today one example of a company that did this. So I'm going to talk to you about Zappos. Zappos is an online retailer. They started with shoes. They don't ship to Canada, so unfortunately a lot of people are not familiar with Zappos, but they're based in Las Vegas. And if you go to Las Vegas, you can actually schedule a tour of their corporate offices. They're so proud of their culture that they invite people in. It's one of their outreach initiatives. You can call up and schedule a tour to see what it's like. So this is Tony Shea, and Tony says their focus on developing a tribe, like-minded group of employees, suppliers, and strategic partners was a critical factor in achieving organizational financial success, and perhaps even more importantly to him, organizational happiness. So who is Tony Shea? He's currently 45 years old. He's an internet entrepreneur and venture capitalist. He is the CEO of Zappos, which is, like I mentioned, online shoe, and now they've expanded into clothing. And prior to Zappos, his very first company that he founded was called Link Exchange. And he sold Link Exchange to Microsoft in 1999 for $265 million. So he's 45 now, and in 1999, he sold his first company. So Tony actually had his first company when he was a student at Harvard University, and he started a pizza company with his friends. And you know, students studying late at night, what's their favorite thing to eat? Pizza. So he started this very successful company, and he had fun doing it because he was doing it with his friends, and they had this natural culture that they had built. When Tony finished Harvard, he came back to where he was living, and he went to work at a company. And he felt really disengaged every day and struggled to work there. And it was because he didn't feel the same way he felt working in his pizza business with his friends. And that's why he started Link Exchange. He started that with one of his buddies, and they created the same form of culture that they had back in their initial company. It was actually, you know, his friend, same as the pizza company, was in Link Exchange. So going to work for a company that didn't have a culture that, you know, really motivated people and helped him feel inspired, made him aware that culture was a key piece in business and being successful. And so he left that company, started Link Exchange, and proved that. So if you're looking for a great read right now while you're, you know, working from home, or you need a break from the busyness, I highly recommend Delivering Happiness, A Path to Profits, Passion and Purpose by Tony Hsieh. He is also the 2007 Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. And how in 2005, Amazon came to Zappos and said, we'd like to buy Zappos, we'd like to buy the company. And Tony at that time said no. And the reason he said no was because Amazon, their culture puts the customer first instead of the culture first. So Tony said, I can't do that. If we sink into, if we assimilate into your culture of putting something before the culture within the company, it's not going to be as successful. I can't do that. So he said no. In 2008, 3 years later, Zappos was doing $1 billion in sales. And then 4 years later, so in 2009, the year after that, Zappos entered into a deal for $1.2 billion in stock, only if the culture remained the same. So Zappos is now owned by Amazon, but they operate as their own business unit. Tony is still the CEO, and they still do things in their unique way. Their culture is protected, and it hasn't just been merged in, and they're still doing exceptionally well. So let's take a look at culture and a closer look at the word. And if we break it down, we see very clearly, we see cult. And when we think of cult, it brings up negative, ideas. We don't want to be in a cult. We don't want to be brainwashed. Being a part of a cult is a negative thing. But my question to you is, which cults do you already belong to? So if you go back to what Tony said, I'll just go back here, right there. Their focus on developing a tribe, like-minded group of employees, suppliers, and strategic partners was a critical factor in achieving their organizational, financial success and organizational happiness. So which of these cults do you belong to? I want you to imagine for a minute that we're finished the pandemic and you're going to return back to some form of normal life, and you've got your Starbucks in your hand and your Mac in your other hand, and you got your Lululemon hoodie on, and you're walking to work. How do you feel? You feel pretty cool with your Starbucks and wearing your Lululemon hoodie. These brands or these companies make you feel a certain way. And because they make you feel a certain way, because they have such strong cultures and they have such strong values that drive their culture, not only are their employees their, top employers to work for, their employees are highly engaged, but they're highly, highly profitable companies because that culture extends beyond their employees out to the customer. And we all want to be a part of it. When the next Mac gadget, Apple gadget comes out on the market, people line up. When I go out, during this time and drive around, it's so quiet, and yet the lineup to Starbucks has never been longer through the drive-through. It's insane how long people will wait to get there, non-fat, extra hot, double chai macchiato, whatever. They will line up for that because we belong to these cults. We become a part of their culture, and that is where the magic happens. So how will we get there? So we're going to have a poll right now, and we're going to ask you some questions about your values within your organization. So you want to answer, where are you at with values in your organization? Number 1, we don't have values. Number 2, we have values, but we haven't shared them with the team. Number 3, we have values and they're posted, but if I was to ask my employees, they would not be able to share them. And number 4, we totally live our values. We make plans and decisions using them as our guideposts every day. So take some time and answer the poll, see where we're at. Don't be afraid if you don't have them, that's okay. We'll talk about that. Okay, so of the people that answered, we have 50%. We had, not everybody answered, and that's okay, but of the people that did answer, we're proud to say that they have values, but they're not really alive, I guess, within the organization. If we're to go and ask the employees what the values are, they might not be able to answer, they might not be able to know. And to be quite honest, that is probably where the largest number of companies are. Then we have 50% of you, 2 of you answered, and this is absolutely fantastic, that we totally live our values. We make plans and decisions using them each and every day. So thank you to those of you that shared in the poll results. We're going to exit out of there now. Okay. All right. So how do we get to this culture where we have this energy within our employees and in our customers, that they just can't wait to come and do business with us and can't wait to help us build our profitability? Okay, well, now we're stuck. Okay, there we go. It's very simple actually, and it starts with the value chain. So how is culture created? First of all, we have our values. Values are what creates our culture. Values that are alive and being lived, and not just values on a wall, but values create the intentional culture. Our culture creates employee engagement. Employee engagement creates service excellence. Service excellence creates our customer satisfaction, and our customer satisfaction creates that stakeholder value, the profitability, the results. So when we start with values, we get to the end result, stakeholder value. When we have stakeholder value, that's what we are all aiming for. That's the win. That's what we get out of bed for in the morning. That's what we're trying to achieve. We're here to win. So we have to start with values. So in essence, every company already has a culture. Where we want to be is with an intentional culture, as opposed to just a culture that might not be positive or might not be driving the business to where we want it to be, to the service excellence that we want to grow the profitability. So culture is exhibited in the multiple decisions, conversations, routines, processes, structures, and practices that take place between members of an organization on a daily basis. These collective patterns consciously or unconsciously make up the real working culture of an organization. So I work with a client that did not have, when I originally started working with them, they did not have values defined yet. They did have a culture within, and they had some underlying values, and what I helped them do was define and brand their values. But each and every day, it's really important that we look to the values and make the decisions. So last week's a situation came up where one of the store managers posted a sign in the Slack group that is for internal communication, and it was talking about customers coming into the store wearing gloves and how this is actually not helpful. It's counterproductive. So they wanted to not. They saw this poster somewhere else, and they thought we should have these posters on our stores too, because to protect our employees. And the poster that they showed had this big black print, and it was like, when I looked at it, all I saw was like an angry, you shouldn't wear gloves, and because the print was black and it was bold and it was sort of in your face. So we talked through this poster. Intention, good. Keep educate the customer and keep the employee safe. So the intention, where it's coming from, is a good intention. But if we apply the values, and their number one value was customer service, we provide wow service. This was putting this poster, making a decision to put this poster on the front door of each one of the locations was not in alignment with the values, because this was not customer friendly, or it would not make our customer feel invited, welcome. So we approached it, we decided this was a good thing, but we needed to change the poster and use different words and in a more friendly way to get back to the intention of keeping our employees safe and welcoming the customers. So we changed it to something like, we're so excited to see you. Thank you for coming in. In an attempt to keep our employees safe, we encourage you not to wear gloves, because did you know gloves actually blah, blah, blah. So we took something and we applied it through the values test and made it in alignment with the values. Now, I think that those customers coming and seeing that sign will, not be sent away feeling not welcome. Even if they weren't wearing gloves, it might be a little bit too, negative. So that's just an example of, in the last week, that I can think of, where one of my clients used their values to make a decision in alignment with the customer that I think will help their business become more profitable. So understand that companies already have a culture, but if we take the values off the wall, or if we first define what the values are if you don't have them, and then we use them to make decisions, that's where we create the magic. So also in terms of, how do our employees feel in the workplace and why is that important? The reality is that 87% of our employees are disengaged, which leads to a $500 billion loss of productivity in the US alone. And that doesn't even, obviously the US is a lot larger than Canada. But if you were to take 87% of your current workforce and think about that they're disengaged, so what percentage of, of them are you getting to align with and achieve your business results? That's pretty low. And if you can imagine making that number much lower or increasing the engagement number and having a fully engaged workforce, how much faster and more efficiently and productively could you work? How much better could you serve your customers? Having engaged employees really does make a difference. And the reality is that momentum happens. Momentum, whether that's negative momentum or positive momentum. So if you have people within your workforce that are disengaged and they're, on a shift with other people, they can bring them down. Where if you're consciously choosing to have a high vibe workplace with values that are driving the culture and the way we do our work, that momentum can create positivity within the workplace and bring the employees alive. And that's what they've done at Zappos. People really, really want to work there and be a part of that because it's positive and people want to be a part of something positive. So where do values happen? Values happen within what I call the spiritual realm. So in North America, we function really within two realms. We're very focused on being in the physical and the mental realm of how we do our work. And it's almost like if you were to have a car and drive your car to work with only 2 full tires, because we didn't even think about the other tires to fill them up. But engagement happens within the emotional and spiritual. And when an employee understands the why and they're passionate about coming to work and they have the company values and the company vision to drive them forward and understand what the team is trying to achieve, then we are doing work within all 4 realms. We're driving our car to work with all 4 tires instead of 2. It makes it much easier. It makes it much more productive. And it's a significant differentiator for any company within North America that looks at all 4 of these levers of how to perform will outperform other companies because of the major focus on the physical and the mental. So the physical is what we do, and the mental is, okay, what's the strategy? What are we going to do? What do we need to do to achieve, higher profits in this quarter? We're going to do this and this and this, and then you execute. That's how we typically work. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Okay, let's do it. That's typically how we function. But if we think about, well, why? Why are we going to do this? And what's the meaning of this? And what's our value? And what's our vision? Where are we as a team rowing our boat towards? And does everybody understand that? With values, we can really take this into a whole new dimension and really elevate our performance and outperform the competition. So you can see where values fit into that and why it's so important. So companies with a higher sense of purpose, so those values define the sense of purpose, outperform others by 400%. That's significant. And that's because of what I just shared with you. It's easy to outperform people when you're using all 4 levers instead of 2. There's 300% more innovation, and there's 44% higher retention when employees are happy. So sense of purpose. When employees are happy, there's 31% increase in productivity, 125% less burnout, and 66% fewer sick days. So just think about that. Think about how challenging it is when that person calls in sick and you're short-staffed and you're not able to serve the customer. 66%, that's 2/3 less, just from having a happy workforce and with a sense of purpose. And how do you get that sense of purpose? You define and you live your values. You take those values off the wall into the hearts of the employees. So happy customers always deliver a better customer experience. So my favorite saying when it comes to culture is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So culture lives in the higher realms than strategy is in the mental realm, so it eats it for breakfast. So that's culture and engagement. Now we're going to shift to succession planning, as it is also one of the key things to building a winning team. And succession planning is a process for identifying and developing new leaders who can replace old leaders when they leave, retire, or die. Succession planning increases the availability of experienced and capable employees that are prepared to assume these roles as they become available. Taken narrowly, replacement planning for key roles is the heart of succession planning. So typically what happens within, I would say, 85% of businesses is there's some thought to doing succession planning, but it is on very low down on the priorities because it's not something that needs to be done until someone leaves. Things are working fine and we're busy, and that someone called in sick and we don't have time to do succession planning. But then what happens is when someone leaves, we're in a panic, we're behind, and it causes a great stress on the business. So we want to invest the time, we want to be proactive in time investment so that we don't have to deal with the chaos on the back end. So it's really important to be proactive and to take some time and to think about succession planning, because succession planning can also be a key to engagement. If your employees are part of a succession plan where they're being developed to either move sideways or up, and they're just being developed, one of the key engagement drivers is development. So it not only helps you out being prepared if someone is to leave the organization, but it also will help engage the current employees, your best and brightest now. So obviously you can never predict when someone will leave. And the current war on talent is really bringing to mind how hard it is to find the best and brightest. So I think, we've been hearing about the war on talent for years now. And I believe from my own experience working with clients, it really hit in January of 2018. There was a significant difference in the talent that was available and how hard recruitment became at that time. So we've been in it a little while now. So when you do have great people working on your team, you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to keep them, and making them a part of the succession plan is a piece of that. So if we think about the cost to the business in time of recruiting, so when that person leaves unexpectedly and you're down while you're trying to recruit someone, that could take you 1 month up to 6 months for some more senior roles. There's a cost to your business. what did that role do, and what is the impact to them not being there? Are your customers not being serviced? Are your key accounts not, seeing someone out in the field? What is the impact? There's a cost to that. Then there's the cost to training and getting that new person after you bring them on, which could be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to get that person. There's this thought out there, everybody is replaceable, and it's true, but we need to understand that there is a significant cost to replace someone. So not being ready can have a significant negative impact on your customers and your bottom line. So you want to be proactive, and you want to decrease the time that it's going to be to put someone into that position and the time to train them. If they have some training and they're more prepared to take on that position, that will decrease the downtime and not have as much of a negative impact to your bottom line. So what are some basic steps to success? I wanted to keep this as simple as possible so that you can actually start to do it without a lot of preparation, and it doesn't have to be hard. So if you just start by reviewing your organizational chart and identifying what are some of the key positions, and then identify 2 to 3 people who have the potential to step up. So think about what position right now within my organization, if that person was to leave, that would have the most significant impact to my business. Okay, that's one position, and this one position, and this position. And so you get 2 to 3 positions. And then who within my organization might have the potential and the interest to step into these roles. And then you would determine what is the gap, what are they missing to step into it today. Well, that person could step into this role today, except they are missing understanding the P&L, and they don't have the relationships with the key accounts. Whatever it is, you then determine what are they missing to be ready today. And then you set up the training and development plan to close the gap. Okay, so what can we do over the next 3 months to help them learn this piece of it? And you set up that training and development. And then you schedule the training to make sure that that happens. And you want to ensure that they're learning both skills and leadership training. And then you check in quarterly. So some people say, well, that sounds all good and well, but what if I don't want to overpromise, or I don't want to tell someone that I'm considering them for a promotion, because then if the person doesn't leave, there won't be a spot for them. So how do you approach that? Well, if you meet with a person that you feel is worth investing in your organization and potentially for a spot, you might not want to tell them what spot, but you meet with them and you say, I really love your initiative and what you've been able to show, and I see a really strong future with you here at the company, and there's different opportunities that I can see potentially down the road, and I don't have a time frame for that, and I don't have any guarantees, but what I would like to do is start to put you on a training and development plan, so that if and when an opportunity becomes available, that you're going to be more marketable for that opportunity, so that we don't have to look outside the organization to replace. And you sort of approach it that way. And then you want to make sure that you're checking on that training and development plan and meeting with that person you're developing quarterly. The way of annual performance reviews is sort of dead now. We are a society that needs more regular feedback. The generations that are in the workplace now prefer more regular feedback. So quarterly is always the best way to schedule with either goal setting or training plans. And then you want to keep your information in a format that works for you. Here's some examples of ways people have done it. They've taken their organizational chart and they put out to the side some of the potential replacement people within the organization. If you don't love org charts, you can do it in Excel. You could make a table, you know, however, it's not important what it looks like, and it's not important to have it in a specific format. Whatever works for you. The important thing is to just start working on it and to have something so that you can start to develop the people and have them starting to get ready. Some organizations I've worked with to do some specific career pathing. So if your organization has a you know, positions within the company and a direct career path that you start, say you start off as a management trainee and then you move to a next level and then you move to an assistant manager. If there's, you know, specific path to advancement, you could put in place some training, some requirements for the position and a training path so that people wanting to move into high roles can look at that. So this is an example of one for an accounting assistant within a company that I have worked with. And the requirements to be an accounting assistant was grade 12, experience in a business environment, ability to learn quickly, and organizational attention to detail, organization and attention to detail. What is the training path if I want to become an accounting assistant? I have to do some compilation work. I have to do some simple T1 preps, some routine compliance work, and have my chargeable percentage to 70 to 75% and participate on one of the company teams. So I know as an employee within the organization, it's very clear to me, it's very transparent what I need to do to get ahead. The nice thing about having something like this in place is it takes the onus off of just you, and it helps invite the employee into a space of ownership for their own career. And you know, you can work with them and have these documents when you're having those meetings with them. But this is how you can go up another level. You might not be ready for this, but if you're, you know, some of you are extra keen and want to really take this to the next level, this is the way you can go. So also understand when it comes to succession planning and having people ready for the next level, the biggest challenge is their EQ, not their skill. So EQ is emotional quotient. So when it comes down, whenever I've been involved with a company and, you know, they're talking about an open position and, well, what about this person for the role? Yeah, they know all of the things and how to do them, but there's just something about them. I don't think they're quite ready to be a leader. They don't quite have the buy-in from people. They just don't have the confidence yet. A lot of the challenge getting ready to promote people is in the emotional quotient, not in the skills. So when you're doing your succession planning and you're developing people, you need to consider a balance between having the skills and developing them as leaders. So, and that's exactly why I developed Glow Leadership Members online, is to develop that piece. So again, if that's something that is of interest to you, if that's something that's missing in your organization, there is now a very cost affordable, high return on investment option out there, and I'd love to talk to you more about that. So that brings us to an end for today. And I think, Jess, you're going to take it from here?
I am here. Thank you so much. That was was really great. I actually wrote down some questions, additional questions myself here. I do just want to remind all the listeners that you can post your questions by clicking the little chat icon at the bottom of your screen. It looks like a little bubble with 3 dots in it. Erin and I are watching those, but I wanted to go back to culture for a second. Actually, I really loved that example of the CEO from Zappos. There's actually an excellent NPR podcast called How I Built That, where they interviewed him, and I do remember that being about culture was incredibly important to Tony.
Yes.
So what if an organization doesn't have any values at all? Like, I know our people listening today all expressed a strong value system, but if you don't have values, like, how do you start? Where do you start?
So if you don't have values, I think it's worth doing some form of a process to define what the values are, and deciding on what they are, defining them, and then communicating and sharing them and starting to bring them alive. So there's different ways that companies do this. And a lot of companies get their senior leaders in a room and they decide, and then they, send the poster to marketing and they go about it that way. My preference and the way I do it when I work with companies through this process is to get all of the employees involved. So there can be different stages to that, but it's a really good idea to look up what other companies have for values, or if you are interested, you can send me an email and I can send you some documents that are actually from my training program. What are some different types of values that different companies have, to give you an idea, and then you really come up with, what is important, what are the key things that drive business success for us, what is important to us as a company, and then get the employees involved. So different ways that I've got employees involved is when I work through values processes, I interview different employees within the organization, and then I identify common themes, and then we've done things where we've put things on SurveyMonkey and had a vote, because the other thing about values and bringing them alive is if you have 10, it's really hard for the employees to remember all 10. So my sweet spot, I think, for values is 3 to 5, no more than 5, so that your people can remember what they are. So if you come up with, 10 things, then maybe have a vote on which ones do you think are the most important to us? And then, but somehow get the employees involved on deciding what those are.
Excellent.
And then a really important thing about it is a lot of the times there'll be a word and then a statement after about how that works for the people. It's really important that these are not the company, the owner's words and values, that they're ours, all of us. So if you work here, this is you, and you have a responsibility to this. So taking the statement after and putting it into an I or a we. So customer service, we deliver wow service. And then you build that into your recruitment practice. You ask questions about service to make sure they're aligned with that value. You put that into your new hire orientation and you tell them what is wow service, so that there's an understanding, and why do we do this? Why is it important to have wow service? So that it carries through.
Okay, that's really interesting, and actually, I just want to have a quick follow-up question to that one. In terms of articulating it, what if your team or your employees just don't believe in the values, or there's just not the buy-in? Is it because we haven't articulated them, or is it again going back to the culture question of how do you manage if your team doesn't believe in the values?
So my thought is that you need to have a team that believes in the values. So not everyone is going to be a match for your organization. And, this really empowers you to develop. This is the difference between building a winning team. Like, for the football fans out there, the New England Patriots, they've taken people, superstar kind of players. And if you're not, you have to let go of your own reputation as a single player to be a part of that team. So being a team is about being a team and believing in the values and sharing and living in the values. So if there are people, when your values and there's someone on the team that is not aligned with that value, you have to either go through like a discipline process to, communicate with them and say, this is our values and, these are very important and this is how we live them. And if this isn't the right place for you or the match for you, you might want to consider, we'll support you to go somewhere else. But if you have, it's like having a sort of a rotten apple on the team, right?
Yes.
If everybody is, imagine your team in a boat rowing. If they know where they're rowing the boat, that's the vision. That's really important to know where you're rowing. Otherwise, you have people rowing in different directions. And why is that guy doing that? Well, you never told them we were going over there. So number one, vision. Number two is, how are we going to get there? Well, we're all going, the rowing forward in the boat are the values. But if you have someone at the back of your boat drilling a hole in the boat, you need to get them overboard as fast as possible.
That's a great analogy. Analogy, guys. Don't throw your employees over a boat.
Yes, I'm big on analogies.
Yeah, it's analogy, guys. That's excellent. Yeah.
That's the difference between 100% alignment, right? That is the difference between an A team and that's what creates winning teams.
That's great. Well, I wanted to flip over to your second part of your presentation, which was around succession planning. And we did have a question from one of the attendees who talks, it's really about resistance to succession planning, but perhaps from the employer side. So if you have an employee who feels that they are really ready for a new or different and has new ideas, but they kind of run into that, the employer or the boss that's sort of stuck in the mud or not willing, how do some of these employees present themselves as people that want to be part of the succession plan and want to help lead the organization if leadership is resistant to that?
Right. Okay. So it comes down to a basic understanding of human behavior. And one thing about human behavior is that we are humans, all of us, we are egocentric. So often when an employee goes to their employer and communicates, I want to increase my career, I want to move up, I want to make more money, I want more responsibility, there's a lot of I. But if we look at the employer as also an egocentric being, they're probably thinking, well, it's my business and what's best for me, and you're coming up, bumping heads up against, individual preferences and what is important. So if you want to approach your supervisor, your boss, the leader, for your own advancement, you need to think about what they need. So if you go to them and say, I really want to contribute to the growth of the business.
Okay.
What is important for you? How can I contribute so that we can grow the business together? I really want to help you. I, want to understand what we're trying to achieve here. And I believe that I can really contribute to increasing the customer service and, but make it about them. And
Okay.
that just sort of takes off that opens the ears a little bit more or makes a space.
Well, I think it ties back to your thing about values. If you're that
Right.
culture is there and the values, you want the business to be successful.
Right, exactly.
So that's a really great answer, and it's an excellent question. Thanks to the people listening. And so then going back again to succession planning, the examples you provided, you kind of gave some great things. Is it always sort of a top-down situation, or should people be looking at it from across the board, or where do you start in that process?
Yeah, and that comes down to, an individual preference and how you work and what, some people want to do a little bit of the succession planning and just focus on some key positions with the organization. Other people want to do it top to bottom. So if you want to do it full out, that would be my style, where I would take it top to bottom. So I would start at the top and go down, because as you go down, things adjust down, right? So if you start in the middle and then go up, it's kind of difficult. However, if you think that that's too much of an undertaking for your first shot at succession planning, you might just want to identify, right now, if I look at my organization and I think about if one position was to leave, it would cause the most harm to my organization, what would that position be?
Mm-hmm.
And going after those positions that way, to mitigate risk.
Mm-hmm.
So you can take it from a mitigate risk. You can take it from a thorough process perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You can take it from a mitigating risk perspective, or you can do, what position do I have the highest turnover?
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
how
okay,
do
that's
I
interesting.
mitigate?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Usually the highest turnover positions are lower
Mm-hmm.
and easier to recruit. However, you're still putting a lot of time in training, and the next level up experiences a high degree of burnout when they have new people to train all the time.
I
So,
see, right.
you could definitely approach it that way.
Well, that's great. How much time would you say someone should devote to succession planning in sort of their overall business month or whatever it is planning? Like, is it a certain percentage of time, or, a couple hours a month, or is it sort of an annual exercise?
I think it is an annual process that and then has a quarterly check-in. It's because you want to align with the training process on a quarterly basis. But I think the overall succession planning, I'm a big believer in the 4 quadrants of time. So if we look at time management into the 4 quadrants, on the top left we have the Q1, top right Q2, bottom left Q3, bottom right Q4. The Q1 time is our strategy planning and thoughtful process. So that's an annual strategic meeting where we look at stuff like this. And I'm a big believer in going off site and spending a day or 2 days or whatever to do this kind of work. So you're getting, you're taking some time and thought process through the big strategic plan, and then you're looking at that quarterly from there.
That's
Is how
great.
I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. You know what? I think that is all the questions we have time for today. But I just wanted to thank you again, Diane. This was a really great presentation. And again, we just want to remind everybody that it is being recorded. We will be posting it on the WRLA website, and we'll send you out the link. We also just wanted to let everyone know that the next webinar for WRLA will be on May 26th, and it'll be on networking and creating connections whilst trying to maintain social distancing. So again, one that's a little more relevant. And we thank everyone, and thank you so much, Diane. We really appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing everyone next month at our next webinar. Thank you so much.
Have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye-bye.